As a mysterious leader imposes their rule on the platform, the new resident becomes embroiled in the battle against a controversial method to fight the brutal feeding system. But when eating from the wrong plate becomes a death sentence, how far would you be willing to go to save your life? Join us on the recap of the movie. The Platform 2. The film opens inside a vertical, self-managed prison, where prisoners are asked to choose one item to bring with them and one meal they will eat for the rest of the time in prison. Every day, food is lowered on a platform through the hole, and you have 2 minutes to eat before it leaves to a lower floor. The lower you are, the fewer chances you have of eating anything if upper inmates don't follow the rules. An obese fellow, Zamiatin, is paired up with a young girl named Perempuán in the 24th cell. Zamiatin is being prisoned for setting his house on fire, whereas Perempuán's crime remains a mystery. When the platform arrives on day 1, Zamiatin gets mad to see someone else from the upper floors has eaten all the toppings off his pizza. He decides to eat someone else's wings for revenge, but that's when a prisoner from level 23 named Robespierre points out that the barbarians on the 21st level ate his pizza. He then explains that there are more than 300 levels below them, most of which never get food and die of hunger. And by eating someone else's meal, Zamiatin will only contribute to the injustice that's already been happening. Zamiatin gets convinced when Perempuán offers him her food instead, since one can switch their items with mutual consent, according to the rules. The next day, Robespierre speculates that the barbarians from 21st level have picked up a fight and are coming along with the platform, so he and his partner separate the metal bars from their bed frames and stay prepared. When the platform is lowered to Zamiatin's cell, he gets shocked to see Robespierre fighting with the barbarian, while his partner catches fire somehow and falls on the platform from her level. Perempuán helps put out the fire, but it's too late. They tie up the prisoner and throw his dead partner in the hollow center, whose limbs break apart by the time she falls to the ground, where some creatures eat her. Now, Robespierre decides to take the captured prisoner to lower levels to find the anointed ones to decide his fate, since they restore order by punishing the ones breaking the rules and disturbing the equal distribution of food. Zamiatin finds it a myth, whereas Robespierre believes that long ago there was a man who set an example by refusing to eat so that others could eat and live, which earned him the title Master. When the platform arrives the next day, Robespierre flushes his food items along with his dead partners and the captured prisoner, which upsets Zamiatin because he was eyeing them. Robespierre explains he didn't want to privilege themselves with the extra food, which counts as injustice to the others. The next morning, Robespierre leaves with the prisoner to find the anointed ones, while Zamiatin and Perempuán keep flushing down the dead one's food every day to stay just. In that month, Zamiatin slowly bonds with Perempuán, who shaves his back, and he shares his food in return. On their last day, Perempuán finishes her remarkable drawing on the wall and asks Zamiatin about his deal with ending up here. He reveals that he couldn't solve a mathematical equation, which bugged him to the point where he left his job and family. He moved back in with his parents, where he set them on fire, but his reason for the fire incident remains a mystery. The next day, Zamiatin and Perempuán find themselves in the 180th level cell, where they witness actual barbarism when the platform arrives with no food every day. One day, Zamiatin and Perempuán become horrified to see a decapitated head falling down the hollowed center, which is normal for the others who've been here before. Zamiatin grows sick, so Perempuán starts looking after him. Prisoners above her start to point out the corrupt prisoners, who will be punished by one of the anointed ones, who's arrived in the upper levels and has already started wiping out the barbarians. Out of many, she talks about the glutinous man on level 24 who ate the dead people's food and will now face punishment. When she asks Perempuán which level she was before coming down here, she instantly lies about being on another level, so they don't catch Zamiatin. That night, Zamiatin recalls his conversation with the prison warden, who reminds him how big of a loser he is for getting kicked out by his family for being a failure, and how his parents also got sick of him when he moved in with them, so he was brought here to be disciplined. Zamiatin loses his mind and decides to commit suicide. Perempuán tries stopping him, but he finds himself guilty enough to set himself up on fire, using his lighter, and jumps off the hollow center. The starving people try to catch him with their sheets to eat him, but he's too heavy to be caught. The next day, Perempuán wakes up to a new cellmate, whose arm has been cut off. By finding out she's only brought a pillow as her one item, who ordered plums to eat for the rest of her time in the pit, Perempuán assumes she's new here. When the platform arrives, they find most of the food ruined or eaten, so they survive on leftovers. That night, Perempuán dreams about Zamiatin sitting next to the new cellmate and misses him. The next morning, the prisoner from the upper floor mentions that the Anointed One has shown himself, who is Babi, the worst ruler of all time. Simultaneously, the prisoners on the lower level tell Perempuán that they've traced the madman from the second level, who's shifted to 2 levels below them. According to the rules set by the Anointed Ones, they are planning to go down and kill him for eating all their food when he was in level 2. Perempuán asks to volunteer them, but the prisoner breaks down only the 4 prisoners before the defaulter can take action, so she must not join them. Perempuán backs off, but the next day, when the platform arrives, her new cellmate encourages her to pick up the bars from their bed frames and go down to fight for justice. When the prisoners see them, they decide to leave behind one of their men to restore order and distribute their food equally, while they go down and beat the barbarian for his crimes. By the end of it, Perempuán spares the man when he justifies his crime, saying he's been here for a long time, so when he was put in on second level, he ate whatever he could to restore his health. Perempuán's cellmate screams for what she's done, which makes her realize she's not a newbie. Now they stay the night in the gone barbarian's cell with his Down syndrome mate. At night, Perempuán's cellmate reveals that she's been here for 6 months. When she was on upper levels, she and her cellmate thoroughly followed the rules and took the responsibility they had over them. But when a new prisoner from lower levels was shifted to the upper ones, they sympathized with him and gave him more food to restore his health. But Babi found out about it and came to punish them. He cut off her arm, but her cellmate resisted, which made Babi tie her to the platform and be eaten by those on the lower levels. She cries in despair, but Perempuán tries to give her hope of getting out one day. But she knows there's no way out of here, which is why she's been trying to find a way to escape when they gas the prisoners every month and switch their cells. Unfortunately, they are met with fate when Babi restores order in the upper floors with his punishments, and comes down with the prisoners to Perempuán's level, along with the ones that provoked a fight and interpreted the law. He decides to kill the 4 people tomorrow for what they've done, and announces Perempuán and her cellmate's punishment, according to which she is to lose her arm, and her cellmate is going to get tied down to the platform naked. Subsequently, the Down syndrome prisoner busts Perempuán and her cellmate's plan, revealing that he was awake the previous night listening to their conversation. The poor man misunderstands their plan and says nonsensical things, which makes everyone laugh and oblivious to Perempuán's plan. Now, Perempuán tries resisting, but the prisoners sever her arm and send down her cellmate to be devoured by the hungry prisoners in the lower levels. 1 month later, Perempuán is shifted to the upper levels in the 70s, where her cellmate is an old man who's brought a sharp knife to cut his bread. She takes the knife from him and asks him to join her to rise against the Anointed Ones, who revoke their freedom and punish them without counting their contributions out of arrogance. One by one, she invites everyone to join her when the platform lowers onto the next level. Surprisingly, a lot of prisoners join her and support her cause. She sees Zamiatin standing among those prisoners once again, who was also a victim to the arrogant laws. Once there are too many people to be standing on the platform, they get off in an empty cell and decide to stop for a while. There, Perempuán becomes enchanted by a painting, which reminds her of her dark days. The fellow resistors now use whatever they can to build their weapons from scratch to fight the battle. Soon, Babi and his fellows take notice of this and take action by discarding their food on each level and coming down a level above theirs to announce that they are going to starve them until they're weak and defenseless, which is going to make it easier to execute them all. Babi asks them to point out their pioneer and free themselves from the punishment, but nobody compensates with him, forcing him to leave. They end up spending their days starving. In the end, they're forced to cannibalize one of their own, which Perempuán refuses to eat and nearly faints. An old woman puts some meat in her mouth to keep her awake for the fight. The next morning, when Babi and his team show up, the resistors fight them. As the fight grows gruesome, the guy Perempuán once spared now tries to choke her to death, but she kills him with her knife and hides under the stone shed until it's all over. By the end of it, everyone, including Babi's people, dies. The platform takes most of the mess away, but Babi stays behind. Perempuán uses her wild imagination to declare punishments for Babi, but she proves she's better than him by not doing anything. Babi eventually dies, so Perempuán throws her down the hollow center and eats her oil painting as a part of her plan, and faints while puking. During this period, we see the kids piling up on top of a slide in their play area. The kid who makes it to the top gets selected by a couple and is taken away. Following this, Perempuán gains consciousness and finds herself tied up to a pile of dead bodies that the facility members are shoving down the pit under the last level, 333. She witnesses that the facility has eliminated gravity, which is allowing the maintenance workers to move freely around and gassing the people in their sleep to shift them to a different level. She frees herself and hides under the last level's bed, while the rest of the dead bodies are pushed down in the darkness. Once the workers leave, Perempuán realizes they've transferred a kid there, revealing the facility to be making prisoners rather than capturing ones. She picks him up during his sleep and nearly faints, during which she imagines her friends joining the master under the last level. Once the platform arrives at her level, she takes it to go down in the pit, where there's nothing but darkness and a large group of starving people who have made it to the end like her. They tell her to send the kid back up since he has a chance to live his entire life, whereas her time is up. They take her away and send the kid back up as the platform goes at a fast pace to reset itself. The film ends with showcasing how others made it to the end, the same way as Perempuán, who now gets to meet the master.